The crash in the Forbidden Zone. The cold wind blew through the dry, broken land known as the Forbidden Zone. No one came here anymore. The air was filled with dust, ash, and silence. Trees were dead, the ground was cracked, and the sky was always gray. But human soldier Elliot was not afraid. He was used to danger. After many years in the army, he had seen too much. Now, he worked alone. He searched the wastelands for lost things, old tech, crashed ships, and sometimes forgotten lives. That morning, his scanner beeped. Elliot knelt by the edge of a cliff. Far below, something metal was half buried in the rocks. It was round, black, and smoking just a little. The screen on his wrist said it had crashed only hours ago. Escape pod? Elliot said softly. He slid down the steep slope, dust flying up with each step. When he reached the pod, he pulled out his tool and cut the emergency door open. The metal was still hot. The air inside smelled like burned plastic and blood. Then he heard it. A weak sound. He turned fast. Inside the pod was a small alien child curled up under a ripped thermal blanket. Her skin was blue-purple and her arms were shaking. She was no older than 7 or 8. She looked up at him with wide, glassy eyes filled with fear. "It's okay," Elliot said gently, lowering his weapon. "I'm not going to hurt you." The girl didn't answer. Her lips were dry. Her tiny fingers clutched a necklace close to her chest. Elliot leaned closer. The necklace had a glowing symbol, like a crown wrapped in stars. He frowned. "That's royal insignia," he whispered. The girl coughed. Her voice came out like air leaking from a broken balloon. "Don't take me back." Her galactic common was broken, but Elliot understood. "Back where?" he asked, but she had already fainted. Elliot quickly picked her up. She was light as a feather. Too light. She hadn't eaten in days. Her body was bruised, her knees scraped, and yet she wore rich clothing under the dirt. Fine fabric, expensive threads, even small silver beads in her hair. "Who are you, kid?" Elliot muttered. He climbed back up the rocks with her in his arms, slowly and carefully. The wind picked up. He needed to get her to shelter. Fast. At his old outpost, Elliot placed the girl on a soft bed and covered her with a thermal blanket. He gave her small drops of water and a nutrient pack. She slept for hours, breathing softly. When she woke up, she screamed. Elliot was already beside her. Hey, it's okay, you're safe." She stared at him, panicked. She pressed herself against the wall, her hands glowing with a strange alien energy. But her body was too weak, she fell to her knees. "Don't send me back," she whispered again. "They said I was useless." "Who said that?" Elliot asked. She looked at him, eyes shining with tears. "The men in black, they took me from the palace. They told my mom I died but I didn't. I ran away. I crashed here." Elliot stood still. "Palace?" She pointed to her necklace. "Queen? My mother is Queen Virelian." Elliot's heart skipped a beat. The Queen of the Virelian Empire? He had heard of her. Everyone had. Powerful, cold, lost her only daughter in a rebel attack 5 years ago. But if this child was telling the truth— "You're Princess Elira?" Elliot asked carefully. She nodded slowly. Suddenly, the sound of ships roared in the sky. Elliot looked up through the dusty window. A drone was scanning the zone. He pulled the curtain closed. "They're still looking for you," he said. The little girl nodded again, tears falling down her face. "They want me dead." Elliot stood tall. He looked down at her. This lost, broken, scared child. Maybe she was royalty. Maybe not. But one thing was clear. She needed help, real help, and Elliot had seen enough children lost to war. He wouldn't let one more die. "I don't care who you are," he said softly. "You're safe with me now, I promise." For the first time, The girl relaxed just a little. Her tiny hand reached for his and he gently took it. Outside, the storm clouds began to gather. Something big was coming, but Elliot was ready. The storm howled outside the outpost. Winds tore through the dead trees and shook the metal roof. But inside it was warm. The fire crackled softly, casting orange light on the walls. Elliot sat beside the small alien girl. She was wrapped in a blanket, drinking warm broth slowly, one tiny sip at a time. He had cleaned her wounds and given her clean clothes, simple human clothes that hung loose on her skinny frame. She looked at everything with fear, like a bird, ready to fly away. "Do you remember your name?" Elliot asked gently. She looked down at the mug in her hands. Her fingers trembled. She stayed silent. "It's okay," Elliot said. "You don't have to tell me if you're scared." "I don't remember," she said finally. "They took my name away." Elliot's heart sank. He had seen children like her before, victims of war, slavery, kidnapping, broken not just in body, but in spirit. "I remember hiding," she said. "Dark rooms, chains, whispers. They said I was the last piece, the threat." Elliot leaned forward. "Threat to who?" She shook her head. "I don't know, but I ran. I escaped. Then the ship broke and I woke up with you." Elliot looked at the pendant she still wore. It glowed faintly under the firelight. A royal symbol, a crown over 3 stars, the symbol of the Viralan royal family. If she really was the lost princess, someone had gone to great lengths to erase her. "They must think you're dead," Elliot said. "But you're not. You're alive. You're strong." She looked up at him with big, wet eyes. "I don't feel strong." "You survived," Elliot said. "That's strength." She blinked. Her lips trembled. "Can I stay here, just for a while?" Elliot nodded. "You can stay as long as you want." She crawled closer to the fire and curled up in a ball. Her eyes slowly closed. Elliot stood up, walked to the console and opened a private channel. "Grim, it's me," he said. "I need an ID check on a pendant, sending scan now." A voice replied with static. "This better not be another rusted treasure hunt, Elliot." "Not this time," Elliot said. "I think I found someone important." The next day, Elliot took the girl outside to breathe fresh air. The storm had passed. The sky was still gray, but at least the wind was calm. She walked slowly, touching the bark of dead trees like they were memories. "I dreamed of my mother," she said quietly. She was crying. Elliot knelt beside her. "Do you think she's alive?" She was tall, strong. Everyone listened when she spoke, the girl whispered. "But she always smiled for me. She told me I was her light." Elliot's throat tightened. "That's a mother's love." "But if she loved me," the girl said, "why didn't she come for me?" Elliot didn't know what to say. Later, the scanner beeped again. Grim's voice returned. "You were right. That pendant belongs to the Viralan royal bloodline. Exclusive issue to the heir only." "So she's the lost princess," Elliot said. "Supposedly died in the rebel attack 5 years ago," Grim replied. "Or so the galaxy was told." Elliot looked at the sleeping girl curled up beside the heater. "I think someone lied," he said. "And if you're right," Grim added, "someone might want her dead. Permanently." That night, Elliot heard a noise outside. He grabbed his rifle and moved silently to the window. 2 shadowy figures walked in the dark, scanning the ground with red lights. Bounty hunters. He turned quickly and locked every door. The girl woke up, eyes wide. "They're here," she whispered. "They followed me." Elliot picked her up and whispered, "Don't worry. I won't let them take you." He placed her in a secret storage hatch below the floor and covered her with blankets. "Stay quiet. No matter what happens." Her tiny hand grabbed his. "You saved me once," she said softly. "Promise me, you'll come back." Elliot nodded. "Always." As he stood up, The door slammed open. Lights flashed, voices shouted. But Elliot was ready. Elliot moved like a shadow. His boots barely made a sound on the cold metal floor as he aimed his rifle toward the open doorway. Two figures stepped into the outpost. They wore black armor with red visors. Their movements were sharp, like trained killers. "Scan for life forms," one of them said in a robotic voice. Elliot took cover behind a steel table, heart pounding. He had fought soldiers before. These weren't soldiers. These were hunters. Paid to kill. Paid to silence. They're not leaving without blood, Elliot thought grimly. One of them walked closer to the back room. A red light from his helmet scanned the floor. "Nothing alive. Just dust," he muttered. The second one approached Elliot's hiding spot. Elliot didn't wait. He slammed the butt of his rifle into the man's knee, grabbed his head, and slammed it into the table. The visor cracked with a loud snap, and the body dropped. The other one turned fast, but not fast enough. Elliot fired twice. Silence returned to the outpost. Elliot stood over the bodies, breathing hard. Their gear had no flags, no names, just blank black plates. Professional, erased. He dragged the bodies outside and buried them in the snow-covered ash. When he returned, he opened the hatch in the floor. The little girl peeked out, her eyes wet with fear. "It's okay now," Elliot whispered. "They're gone." She climbed out and hugged him tightly. "I was so scared," she whispered. "I know," he said softly. "But I promised, didn't I?" Later that day, Elliot took the necklace from her hands and placed it on the table. He scanned it again, this time deeper. Inside the royal gem, a code flickered. A family seal. It couldn't be faked. No black market in the galaxy could replicate it. He sent the data to his contact. Grim called back almost instantly. "You weren't kidding, Elliot," he said, his voice tense. "That girl is Elira Viralan, the lost heir." "I thought so," Elliot replied, "but that means the Queen's been lied to for years." Grim lowered his voice. "It also means people in high places want the princess gone, forever." Elliot moved like a shadow. His boots barely made a sound on the cold metal floor as he aimed his rifle toward the open doorway. Two figures stepped into the outpost. They wore black armor with red visors. Their movements were sharp, like trained killers. "Scan for life forms," one of them said in a robotic voice. Elliot took cover behind a steel table, heart pounding. He had fought soldiers before. These weren't soldiers. These were hunters. Paid to kill. Paid to silence. They're not leaving without blood, Elliot thought grimly. One of them walked closer to the back room. A red light from his helmet scanned the floor. "Nothing alive. Just dust," he muttered. The second one approached Elliot's hiding spot. Elliot didn't wait. He slammed the butt of his rifle into the man's knee, grabbed his head and slammed it into the table. The visor cracked with a loud snap, and the body dropped. The other one turned fast, but not fast enough. Elliot fired twice. Silence returned to the outpost. Elliot stood over the bodies, breathing hard. Their gear had no flags, no names, just blank black plates. Professional. Erased. He dragged the bodies outside and buried them in the snow-covered ash. When he returned, he opened the hatch in the floor. The little girl peeked out, her eyes wet with fear. "It's okay now," Elliot whispered. "They're gone." She climbed out and hugged him tightly. "I was so scared," she whispered. "I know," he said softly. "But I promised, didn't I?" Later that day, Elliot took the necklace from her hands and placed it on the table. He scanned it again, this time deeper. Inside the royal gem, a code flickered. A family seal. It couldn't be faked. No black market in the galaxy could replicate it. He sent the data to his contact. Grim called back almost instantly. "You weren't kidding, Elliot," he said, his voice tense. "That girl is Elira Viralan, the lost heir." "I thought so," Elliot replied. "But that means the Queen's been lied to for years." Grim lowered his voice. "It also means people in high places want the princess gone. Forever." Elliot looked at the sleeping girl, her small body curled under the blanket. Not on my watch. The next morning, the girl sat beside the fire, playing with a broken toy Elliot had found. She had fixed it using tiny sparks from her hands. Strange alien magic, or maybe just royal tech. Elliot watched her. She was smiling for the first time. "Do you remember anything else?" he asked gently. She nodded slowly. "I remember a garden, big trees, blue leaves. My mother used to sit on a silver chair. She sang songs to me. Tears formed in her eyes. I miss her." Elliot crouched beside her. "We'll find her. I'll take you home." "But what if she doesn't want me?" Elira asked. "What if she believes I'm really dead?" "She's a mother," Elliot said. "She will want you, she just doesn't know you're alive." Elira held his hand tightly. Then, "Don't leave me, please." "I won't," Elliot promised. They packed light and left the outpost at night. Elliot used old smuggler routes, paths not marked on maps. They walked through caves, forests, and icy rivers. For days they moved without rest. Sometimes Elira cried in her sleep. Sometimes Elliot had to fight off wild beasts or patrol drones, but he never left her side. At one point they stopped near a cliff. Below them, the distant towers of the Virilan capital glowed like stars. "There it is," Elliot said. "You're home." Elira looked at the city with wide eyes. "I don't remember it." "That's okay," Elliot said. "You will." That night, they found shelter in an abandoned hut. Elliot went outside to collect supplies. When he returned, Elira wasn't alone. A tall, alien woman stood near her. Dark robes, golden armor, and eyes that glowed softly. Elliot raised his weapon. "Step away from her." "I mean no harm," the woman said. "I am Liari. I was her caretaker, before she was taken." Elira looked confused. I remember her voice." Liari knelt beside the child. "The queen still mourns. She holds a small crystal with your image every day. She believes you are gone," Elira trembled. "Will she believe it's really me?" "She will," Liari said. "Your blood carries the mark of royal power." Elliot lowered his weapon slowly. "Then we need to bring her back," he said. But Liari looked worried. "There are more hunters. Closer than you think. And worse, someone inside the palace does not want Elira to return." Elliot clenched his jaw. "Let them try." The sky over Virelan's mountain ridge was dark, filled with clouds that glowed from the city lights below. The royal capital was close now, too close for comfort. Elliot stood outside the hut, staring toward the distant towers. Behind him, the little alien girl slept under a thick blanket. She looked peaceful for the first time in days. But Elliot's heart was heavy. Liari, the alien woman who claimed to be Elira's caretaker, stood beside him. Her face was calm, but her golden eyes were sharp. "She must not go in through the front gates," Liari said. "They will take her before she even reaches the queen." "You said someone in the palace wants her gone," Elliot replied. "Who?" Liari's voice turned quiet. "The High Regent. He was named ruler after the queen lost her daughter. But if the true heir returns, his power ends. He will do anything to stop that." Elliot looked down at the sleeping girl. "She doesn't even know what's waiting for her. She just wants her mother." Liari nodded. "And her mother believes she's gone. The pain made her blind. Even if we reach her, she might not believe what she sees." "Then we'll make her believe," Elliot said, "no matter what it takes." The next morning they moved fast. Elliot, Elira, and Liari traveled through old tunnels under the city, forgotten paths built during ancient wars, but they weren't alone. Elliot heard the sound first, a faint click of metal on stone. "Stop," he whispered. Liari froze. Elira grabbed Elliot's hand. From the shadows, red lights appeared. A full squad of black-armored hunters blocked the tunnel ahead. Behind them, more footsteps echoed. They were surrounded. Elliot stepped in front of Elira. "Run, if I say so." "I'm not leaving you," she cried. Liari raised her hand. Golden energy shimmered in her palm. Then we fight together. The lead hunter stepped forward. His voice was calm and cruel. Give us the girl. You can walk away. Not a chance, Elliot growled. The fight exploded in a flash of light and sound. Elliot moved like a storm, blasting one enemy back with his rifle, then spinning to dodge a stun baton. Liari's hands glowed with power, hurling attackers against the walls. Elira screamed and hid behind a broken pillar. A blade slashed across Elliot's arm. He grunted, dropped low, and swept the attacker's legs. More enemies poured in. Elliot grabbed Elira and ran. Liari! He shouted. Go! I'll hold them. Liari raised both arms, and the tunnel behind them filled with fire and smoke. Elliot didn't stop. He ran through the dark, Elira in his arms. The tunnel twisted and turned, then finally opened into a forgotten stone chamber lit by pale crystals. They were safe. For now. Elliot collapsed to the ground, panting. Blood dripped from his arm. Elira sat beside him, her eyes full of fear. I'm sorry, she said. This is all because of me. No, Elliot said firmly. This is because of them. They're afraid of you. That means your return matters. Elira looked at the symbol on her necklace. I don't want to be a princess, she whispered. I just want my mom. Elliot smiled softly. That's all you've ever wanted. Hours passed. Liari returned, her robes torn and her face marked with dust, but alive. They pulled back, she said. For now. Elliot looked up. Then it's time. Time for what? Elira asked. To meet the queen, he said. But we're going through the secret way. Liari reached into her cloak and pulled out a glowing shard. This is a royal memory crystal, she said. It contains Elira's birth, her childhood, her first steps. Only the queen and I ever saw it. If the queen sees this, she'll know the truth. Elira took the crystal, her hands shaking. Will she still love me? Liari's voice trembled. She never stopped. That night, they climbed the quiet cliffs behind the palace. Old stone paths led to a hidden entrance once used only by royal caretakers. Guards stood by the main gate, but Elliot and Liari knew how to move in the shadows. They slipped inside. The halls of the palace were silent. The walls were gold and glass. Huge paintings of ancient rulers stared down at them. Elira walked slowly, her feet soft on the floor. Then they reached it. The queen's private chamber. 2 guards stood at the door. Elliot stepped forward, raising both hands. We need to speak to the queen. It's about her daughter. The guards aimed their weapons. No one sees the queen without. Then the door opened. Queen Virelan stood there, tall and strong. Her face was cold, but her eyes looked tired. What is this? She asked. Elira stepped out from behind Elliot. The queen stared. Time stopped. The pendant glowed. The crystal in Elira's hands floated into the air. Images filled the room. Of a baby laughing, a mother singing, a child with bright eyes learning to walk. The queen dropped to her knees. Elira. A thin fog covered the ground as Elliot and Elira followed Liari through the narrow canyon path. The wind whispered like voices, cold, quiet, full of warning. The city of Virelan sparkled far ahead like a golden cage. Beautiful, but dangerous. Elira gripped Elliot's hand tightly. I feel like someone's watching us. They are, Liari whispered. They've been watching since we crossed the border. Elliot didn't speak. His hand was already resting near his weapon. Something was wrong. Too quiet. Too still. They found shelter in a ruined watchtower just outside the capital. The structure was cracked, vines crawling up its walls, but it was dry and hidden. Elliot set Elira down beside a fire. She was pale, her energy fading. He placed a cloak around her shoulders and knelt beside her. You okay, kid? I dreamed of a red hallway, she said softly. Men in masks. One said I was the danger. Another said, She must never return. Elliot clenched his jaw. They're afraid of you. Liari stood near the shattered window watching the road. They should be, she said. If truth returns to the palace, their lies will burn. Suddenly, crack. A branch snapped outside. Elliot was on his feet in a second. 3 shadows appeared in the fog. They moved slowly, then fast. Blaster fire flashed. Elliot pushed Elira down. Stay low, he fired back. 1 attacker dropped. 2 more rushed in from the sides. They wore dark cloaks and armor with no mark. Silent killers. Liari raised both hands. A golden shield bloomed around Elira. 1 assassin crashed against it with a loud crack and flew backward, stunned. Elliot fought hard. He tackled the last enemy to the ground, punching until the helmet cracked. Underneath was a face, young, scared, human, a mercenary. What are you doing here? Elliot shouted. The man coughed. She mustn't reach the queen. Who sent you? The man smirked, then bit down. A sharp pop, a poison capsule. His eyes rolled back. Dead. They buried the attackers beneath rocks before the sun rose. Elira cried quietly. I don't understand, she said. Why would people want me dead? I just want my mom. Liari sat beside her. Because your name means something. You were born to bring peace on, and some people prefer war. But I don't want a throne, Elira said. I don't even remember the palace. You don't need to remember it, Elliot said. You just need to face it. He knelt before her. You're brave, Elira. Braver than most adults I've met. She looked up at him. Do you really think my mom will know me? I think a mother always knows, he said. The next day, Liari revealed an ancient tunnel hidden beneath a tree near the outer wall. This path leads to the queen's personal chambers, she said. No guards, no cameras, only one way in, and out. But it's tight, she added, and dangerous. It was sealed centuries ago. Elliot looked at Elira. You ready? The girl nodded, clutching her pendant. Inside, the tunnel was dark and narrow. Water dripped from the ceiling. Strange roots crawled along the walls, glowing slightly with alien light. As they moved, the tunnel whispered to them. Not voices, memories, echoes of the past. Elira touched one glowing root and gasped. I see. Her, she whispered. She's sitting alone, crying, holding a locket. Elliot's eyes widened. You're linked to the palace. I think she still feels me, Elira whispered. Liari looked at her, eyes full of hope. Then it's time, she said. Let her feel you fully. They reached the end of the tunnel. A silver wall blocked the way. Liari pressed her hand to it. Only royal blood can open this. Elira stepped forward. Her hand glowed faintly. She pressed her palm to the wall. For a second, nothing. Then light burst through the cracks. The wall slid open with a slow hiss. A hidden door, a secret path. They entered. Beyond the door was the queen's private chamber, a room full of starlight windows, glowing curtains, and silence. The queen stood alone, staring out the window. Her robe shimmered like water. Her face was cold, but her hands trembled. Liari stepped forward. My queen. The queen turned. Her eyes landed on the girl. Her breath caught in her throat. Elira? She whispered. Elira stepped forward. Her pendant floated into the air. Light poured from it. Memories danced, baby laughs, lullabies, a little girl singing. Tears welled up in the queen's eyes. She dropped to her knees. My child. The room fell into silence. The queen, ruler of the Viralan Empire, was no longer standing tall. She was on her knees, trembling, eyes locked on the little girl in front of her, Elira, the daughter she believed dead for 5 long years. But now, Elira stood before her, thin, bruised, dressed in old human clothes, but alive, breathing, watching, her mother with the wide, tear-filled eyes of a child who had waited too long to be held. The pendant floated between them. Its light faded, leaving only silence. Then Elira whispered, "Mom?" Queen Virellin's hands flew to her mouth. Her royal mask cracked, shattered, and fell. She crawled forward slowly, as if afraid it was all a dream. Elira didn't move. When their hands finally touched, the queen broke into sobs. Deep, raw sobs that shook her shoulders. "My baby. My little star," she whispered, holding Elira close. "They told me you died. They showed me your broken ship. I buried a child that wasn't you." Elira clung to her like a child, lost in a storm. Elliot stepped back silently, giving them space. Liari stood at his side, her voice soft. "I've served her for decades. I've never seen her cry." Minutes passed before the queen could speak again. She cupped Elira's face with both hands, as if memorizing every inch. "You're so thin," she said, her voice breaking. "What did they do to you?" "They locked me in dark places," Elira whispered. "They said I wasn't worthy, that you didn't want me, that I was too soft." The queen's face changed, grief replaced by fury. "Who said this?" she asked, her voice sharp now. "Who dared touch you?" Elira looked down, but Elliot spoke. "It was your High Regent," he said. "He ordered the ship explosion, replaced the body, spread the lie." The queen stood slowly, still holding Elira's hand, her voice turned to steel. "Then his days are over." Moments later, the chamber door burst open. Guards rushed in, weapons raised. "Your Majesty," we were told. "Intruders," she raised one hand. Silence. The guards froze. Then they saw the girl. They stepped back, stunned. The queen looked at Elliot. "You brought her home." "She saved herself," Elliot replied. "I just didn't let her fall." The queen stared at him for a long moment, then lowered her head. "Thank you," she said. "You brought back the part of me that was dead." She turned to the guards. "Bring the High Regent to the throne hall, now." Within the hour, the great throne chamber roared with gasps and whispers. Ministers, nobles, soldiers, all summoned in haste. And at the front stood the queen, her daughter at her side. Elliot stood near them, silent but alert. The High Regent entered, calm and smiling. "Your Majesty, what is—" Then he saw Elira. The color drained from his face. "No, no, this is impossible." "She is my daughter," the queen said. "The true heir. You lied to me. You tried to erase her." The regent tried to speak. This is a trick, a fake, an illusion." Elira stepped forward. She pulled out the royal pendant and placed it on the floor. It glowed, rose into the air, and projected her memories again. Her voice as a baby, her laughter, her first steps into her mother's arms. The room went silent. The regent backed away. "I did it to protect the empire," he shouted. "She was weak, she cried at war meetings. She loved too much. She would have destroyed us." "She's 10, Elliot said sharply. "And she's stronger than you'll ever be." The queen's voice was ice. "Take him away." Guards grabbed him. His screams echoed as he was dragged out. That night, the queen sat on the palace balcony with Elira in her lap. Stars filled the sky above them. "You'll never be alone again," she whispered into her daughter's hair. "I was never really alone," Elira said softly. "Elliot was with me." The queen looked over at the human soldier standing nearby. "She needs a guardian," she said. "Someone who will walk with her into the future. Someone I trust." Elliot blinked. "Me?" The queen smiled. "You're already doing it." Elira beamed. "Does that mean you're like my dad now?" she asked. Elliot scratched the back of his neck. "I guess, if you want that." She nodded, smiling wide. "I do." And far away, the stars above Virelon shined a little brighter, because one child had come home, and her mother, once cold as ice, had remembered how to love again. The sun rose over the Virilan Palace like a golden fire, but inside, the royal walls, light was just starting to touch the darkness that had lived there for years. Queen Virilan stood in her private hall, eyes sharp, jaw set. Her daughter, Elira, was safe in the next room, sleeping under layers of silk and warmth. But safety was not enough. Truth had to rise, and truth was dangerous. Elliot stood by the window, watching the city wake. For the first time, he wore royal colors, a silver stripe on his arm, marking him as protector of the air. He still wasn't used to it. He had spent most of his life hiding in dust and war zones. Now he stood inside a palace, guarding a princess who called him Dad. Liari entered, carrying an old sealed box. "We found this in the High Regent's quarters," she said. He thought he destroyed all the proof, but not this. She opened the box slowly. Inside were broken data crystals. Elliot picked one up, turned it gently. "What's this?" he asked. "Hidden records," Liari said. "They show it wasn't just about Elira." Elliot played one of the damaged chips. A voice echoed through the room. "We remove the child, the queen breaks. She becomes easier to control. Then we move in quietly and rule from the shadows." Elliot's blood went cold. "They planned it all," he said. "A silent coup." Liari nodded. "And now the queen must decide. Expose them all, or keep the peace." Meanwhile, Elira woke up in her grand chamber. The bed was soft, the room filled with stars on the ceiling that danced when she blinked. But she didn't smile. She sat up and stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her face still had scars. Her eyes still held fear. A knock at the door. It was her mother. The queen sat beside her daughter on the bed, holding a brush. "May I?" she asked. Elira nodded. As the queen brushed her daughter's hair gently, she said, "I once dreamed of this every night, brushing your hair, hearing your voice." Elira looked at her. "Do you still want me? Even after everything?" Queen Virilan paused. "I never stopped. I only stopped believing you were alive. That was my mistake." "But I'm not brave like you," Elira said. "I cried every night." The queen kissed her forehead. "Bravery isn't about not crying, it's about surviving the nights you cry." Elira finally leaned into her mother's arms. In the great chamber, Queen Virilan called her inner council, ministers, generals, advisors, and Elliot. The queen stood tall, but her voice was calm. "Years ago, I was told my daughter was dead. I was told to forget. But forgetting was not healing. It was surrender." The room went quiet. She turned to the table, pressed a crystal button. The High Regent's voice played again. "We break the queen through grief. Then we rule. The child is a weakness. Remove her." Gasps filled the chamber. One general stood. Who else knew of this? Silence. Then Minister Karn spoke. "Your Majesty, the regent acted alone." Elliot stepped forward. "No, he didn't. I've seen the hidden paths, the locked records. He had help." The queen's eyes scanned the room. "Then I give you all a choice," she said. "Stand with my daughter, or stand exposed beside a traitor." One by one. The guilty stood up and left, and one by one the loyal stepped forward and bowed. Later that night, Elliot stood by the balcony again, looking out over the city. Elira joined him, wearing a new royal robe, but barefoot. "I can't sleep," she whispered. "Too many thoughts?" he asked. She nodded. "Everything is so big here," she said. "And quiet, but not in the nice way." Elliot knelt beside her. "I've lived in small places most of my life," he said. "But when I saw you in that escape pod, I knew something big was starting." Elira looked up at him. "You're staying, right?" He smiled. "You think I'd leave after all this?" She reached out and hugged him tight. But deep below the palace, in the old dungeons, a shadow moved, a forgotten enemy, a prisoner who had once helped the regent. but vanished before justice came. Now he was free again, and he had one name in his mouth: Elira. Thunder rumbled above the palace, not from the sky, but from within. In the lowest part of the royal fortress, deep beneath marble and gold, ancient chains clattered on stone. A forgotten prisoner had broken free. His name was Thalen Call, once the Queen's secret strategist, later exposed as one of the minds behind the High Regent's betrayal. He had vanished before the arrests began. Now, with fire in his eyes and madness in his veins, he whispered just one word: Elira. Above, the palace shined with light and celebration. Banners flew. The people of Viralan gathered to cheer their lost princess's return. But Elliot felt uneasy. He stood in the center court, surrounded by nobles, but his hand stayed near his weapon. Liari walked to him, her face tight. "You feel it too?" Elliot nodded. "Something's off." Suddenly screams echoed across the hall. Soldiers fell, lights sparked. Thalen Call entered the court wearing stolen armor, holding 2 plasma blades. "I see the child lives," he growled. "Then the Empire dies with her." Elliot pushed through the crowd. Elira stood frozen on the steps. Kale charged. "No!" Elliot roared, diving between them. Their weapons clashed, steel and plasma, fury and fire. Elliot fought with everything. He bled. He fell, but he rose again. Behind him, Elira stood tall. She raised her hand, and her pendant glowed bright gold. The air around her shimmered like a shield. Cal laughed. "You think you can stop me with light, child?" But Elira didn't flinch. "I don't have to stop you," she said. "I'm not alone." She reached forward. The light exploded. Cal screamed as golden energy wrapped around him. The shield crushed his blades, threw him to the floor. Guards rushed in and pinned him. It was over. Hours later, silence returned to the throne room. The Queen stood before the crowd. She looked tired, but proud. "My daughter has returned to me," she said, "but not as a girl, as a leader." The nobles cheered. But today another truth must be honored. She turned to Elliot, still bruised, standing quietly behind Elira. "This man found my daughter when I had lost hope. He protected her, fought for her, bled for her. He is not of our blood, but he is of our family." She knelt before him, and so did the crowd. "Rise, Elliot, protector of the crown. Forever." Later that night, Elliot sat with Elira beneath the royal tree garden. "I don't belong here," he said softly. "All this gold and silk, it's not me." Elira looked at him. "But I need you." He smiled. "You've grown stronger. You don't need me anymore." "Yes, I do," she said, holding his hand. "Not just to protect me, but to remind me who I am." Elliot closed his eyes. Maybe it wasn't about palaces or crowns. Maybe it was about choosing to stay when you didn't have to. The stars above the Viralan sky burned brighter that night. The Queen watched from her chamber window. Her daughter laughed in the garden with the human who had brought her home, and for the first time in many years, the Empire felt whole again.